The massive alien ship hung in space like a crystal snowflake, its delicate spires catching the light of distant stars. Inside, the members of the Galactic Council shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their large eyes blinked rapidly as they watched the recording from Earth for the third time. "Impossible," whispered Council Leader Vale, his translucent skin paling further. "No intelligent species could evolve in such conditions." The recording showed humans running through rain, climbing mountains, swimming in rough seas, and hunting. To the aliens, used to their climate-controlled worlds and perfectly stable environments, it looked like a horror movie. "Yet they did," said First Observer Blue, his tentacles wrapping nervously around his datapad. "The planet they call Earth has gravity 1.3 times higher than standard. They have extreme weather patterns, thousands of predator species, and natural disasters that would destroy any of our civilizations." The council chamber erupted in worried whispers. These humans weren't just surviving on their death world. They were thriving. At that moment, far below the council chamber, the first human diplomatic team was arriving. Captain Tom Gray led his small crew through the pristine white corridors of the station, their boots making loud sounds against the floor. The aliens they passed pressed themselves against the walls, staring with a mixture of fear and fascination. "They're acting like we're going to bite them," whispered Lieutenant Ann West to her captain. "Can't blame them," Tom replied quietly. "We've read their files. Most of these species evolved on paradise worlds. No predators, perfect weather, low gravity. Everything handed to them on a silver platter." The human team reached the council chamber's entrance. The guards, tall, thin aliens with 4 arms, gripped their weapons tighter. Tom noticed their hands were shaking. "We come in peace," he said clearly, using the standard greeting they'd been taught. "Earth sends its representatives to join the galactic community." The doors slid open. Inside, hundreds of alien species sat in rising tiers of seats, all eyes fixed on the humans. Tom led his team to the center platform, trying not to smile at how the nearest aliens leaned away. Council Leader Vale spoke first, his voice trembling slightly. "Representatives of Earth, we have studied your world. You claim to be a peaceful species, yet you evolved as predators. Your bodies are dense with muscle, your bones thick with calcium. You can survive radiation levels that would kill most species, and your endurance exceeds our greatest athletes. How can we trust such creatures in our peaceful galaxy?" Tom took a deep breath. He'd expected fear, but this level of prejudice was surprising. "With respect, Council Leader, our strength comes with wisdom. Yes, Earth made us tough, but it also taught us to protect the weak, to help others survive. We learned cooperation because we had to work together to overcome our world's challenges." He gestured to his team. "Look at us. We're not here with weapons or threats. We come with open hands, seeking friendship. Judge us by our actions, not our capabilities." A new voice spoke up, harsh, mocking. The Bright One ambassador stood, his golden skin gleaming. "Pretty words from a primitive species. You speak of peace while your very bodies are built for war. I say we quarantine their death world before they infect our society with their savage ways." Many council members nodded in agreement. Tom felt his heart sink, but kept his voice steady. "We've overcome our primitive past. We've built art, music, literature. We've learned to heal instead of harm. Yes, we're strong, but strength can protect as well as destroy." The council chamber burst into argument. Some supported the Bright One's call for quarantine, while others argued for caution. Through it all, Tom and his team stood calmly, proving with their patience that humans were more than the savages the council feared. Finally, Council Leader Vale raised his hands for silence. "The council will deliberate. Until then, the Earth delegation will remain under observation. We must be certain your kind can exist in civilized space without incident." As Tom led his team out, he caught the Bright One ambassador's smug look. This wasn't over, it was just the beginning. Humanity would have to prove itself, and Tom had a feeling it wouldn't be easy. But then again, nothing worth doing ever was, especially for a species that called a death world home. 3 days after the first meeting, the human delegation sat in their assigned quarters aboard the council station. The room felt too cold, the gravity too light, but they had learned to hide their discomfort. Commander Kate Smith stood by the window, watching the strange alien ships move through space, when the message arrived. "Commander," the station's AI spoke in its musical voice, "the Council requests your presence, all of you." Tom Gray, who had been dozing in the corner, opened his eyes. Finally, I was starting to think they'd forgotten about us. The team made their way through the station's corridors. This time, fewer aliens ran away from them. Some even looked curious rather than terrified. The council chamber seemed different today. The usual seats were empty except for 5 beings. Council Leader Vale, the Bright One Ambassador, and 3 others they didn't recognize. The Bright One's golden skin glowed with what looked like satisfaction. "Humans," the ambassador's voice dripped with fake politeness, "we have decided to give you a chance to prove yourselves worthy of joining galactic society." Commander Smith stepped forward. "We're listening." 3 trials, the ambassador said, spreading his glowing arms wide. "Pass them, and Earth joins the council. Fail even one, and your planet faces quarantine. Forever." Tom started to object, but Kate held up her hand. "Explain these trials." The ambassador's smile grew wider. "First, a test of physical endurance on the storm world of Keris. No species has ever completed the course there. Second, a tactical combat simulation against our finest warriors. Third, survival for 1 month on an extreme world of our choosing." The humans exchanged glances. They knew this was a trap, but they also saw an opportunity. "And if we succeed?" Kate asked, keeping her voice neutral. Council Leader Vale spoke up, his voice gentle compared to the ambassador's harsh tones. "Full membership in the council. Trade rights. Access to galactic technology. Everything we offer our most trusted allies. And if we refuse?" The Bright One ambassador laughed. "Then you prove what we already know, that you're nothing but savage cowards, unfit for civilized space." Kate looked at her team. Tom nodded slightly. Lieutenant Reed, their tactical expert, gave a small smile. They all knew what had to be done. "We accept," Kate said firmly. The ambassador's glow flickered for just a moment, as if he hadn't expected them to agree so easily. "The first trial begins tomorrow. I hope you've made peace with your primitive gods." As they left the chamber, Tom moved close to Kate. "They're trying to kill us, you know." "Of course they are," Kate replied quietly. "But they don't understand what they're dealing with. Storm world. We grew up with hurricanes and tornadoes. Combat simulation. We invented guerrilla warfare. Survival challenge. Earth itself is an extreme world by their standards." Lieutenant Reed chuckled. "Did you see the ambassador's face when we accepted? He thought we'd run away scared." "Let them underestimate us," Kate said, reaching their quarters. "While they're busy looking down on us, we'll show them exactly what humans can do." That night, as artificial darkness fell over the station, the human team prepared. They studied everything they could find about Keris, the storm world. They checked their equipment, designed for conditions far worse than anything the aliens could imagine. They rested, they planned, they got ready. Just before sleep cycle, Kate stood again at the window. Tomorrow would change everything. Either humanity would prove itself to the galaxy, or they would face isolation forever. But she wasn't worried. After all, humanity had spent its entire existence overcoming impossible challenges. What was one more? In their private chamber, the Bright One ambassador and his allies celebrated what they saw as their coming victory. They had no idea that they had just challenged the most adaptable, most determined, most stubborn species in the known galaxy. They would learn soon enough. The storm world of Keris lived up to its name. Purple lightning split the dark sky as Commander Kate Smith and her team stepped out of the transport ship. Wind howled around them, strong enough to knock over the alien observers in their protective bubbles. Gravity reading is 1.8 Earth standard, Tom said, checking his wrist device. Air is breathable, but thick with dust. Temperature, hot, really hot. The Bright One ambassador floated safely in his environmental pod. The course is simple. Cross the Valley of Storms, climb the lightning peaks, and reach the marker on the other side. You have 6 hours. His golden skin flickered with amusement. No species has made it past the valley floor. Kate looked at the course ahead. The valley was 5 miles of open ground, whipped by winds and struck by constant lightning. The mountains beyond rose into clouds black as ink. A normal person would call it impossible. But humans weren't normal. Not by galactic standards. "Let's move," Kate ordered. Her team formed a line, using climbing ropes to stay connected. The aliens watched from their safe pods as the humans started walking straight into the storm. The first blast of wind nearly knocked them over. But humans had evolved on a world with hurricanes and tornadoes. They leaned into it, using their natural weight and strength to stay upright. Their special suits, designed for Earth's worst weather, kept the worst of the dust away. "They're actually moving forward," one alien observer whispered. "How is this possible?" Lightning struck nearby, leaving glass in the sandy ground. The aliens jumped in fear, but the humans kept going. Their suits absorbed some strikes, and they dodged others. Earth's lightning was stronger anyway. An hour into the challenge, they reached the mountain base. The aliens expected them to stop, to give up like all others had. Instead, Lieutenant Reed pulled out climbing gear. "Look at that crazy structure," he said, pointing at the rock face. "Looks like the cliffs in Utah. Same handholds, same pattern." Tom grinned. "Mother Earth trained us well." They started climbing. The wind was worse here, the lightning more frequent. But humans had been climbing mountains since before they could write. Their strong bones and tough muscles, built for Earth's higher gravity, made the work easier than it looked. From their observation pods, the aliens watched in stunned silence. These creatures, these Deathworlders, were doing the impossible. Not just surviving, but moving with purpose and skill. 3 hours in, they reached the peak. The marker glowed in the distance through curtains of purple lightning. The path down was even more dangerous than the climb up. "Remember that mudslide in Brazil?" Kate asked her team. They nodded, understanding her plan. To the aliens' horror, the humans didn't climb down. They slid down controlled paths, using the storm's own power to move faster. Their suits sparked with absorbed lightning, but they didn't slow down. 4 hours and 15 minutes after they started, Kate Smith placed her hand on the marker. Her team arrived seconds later. They were tired, dusty, and their suits were scorched, but they were alive. More than alive, they were triumphant. The Bright One ambassador's pod descended, his golden glow noticeably dimmer. This is impossible. The storms, the gravity, the lightning. "Feels like a rough day back home," Tom said with a shrug. "Maybe a bit cooler." Kate stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the ambassador. One trial down, ready for the next. The ambassador fled back to his ship without answering. The other aliens followed, their pods moving erratically as they rushed to escape these incredible beings. Council Leader Vale remained behind. "In all my years," he said softly, "I have never seen anything like this. Perhaps we were too quick to judge." The humans smiled as they boarded their transport. They had passed the first test, but they knew the aliens would make the next one even harder. That was fine by them. After all, humanity's greatest strength wasn't just surviving challenges, it was exceeding them. The combat simulation chamber was a massive white room that could create any battlefield scenario using advanced alien technology. Lieutenant Reed stood in the center, wearing a simple training suit. The rest of the human team watched from an observation room above, along with the council members. "The rules are simple. the Bright One ambassador announced, his golden skin pulsing with pride. Your tactical expert against our best warrior minds. The simulation will create random terrain. First team to capture the enemy's base wins. Tom leaned close to Kate. They've rigged it somehow. Probably, she whispered back. But they don't know about Earth's military history. The simulation started. The White Room transformed into a complex landscape of hills, forests, and rivers. Reed's small force of simulated soldiers appeared around him, while the alien team materialized on the other side of the map. The alien commanders were tall, elegant beings with advanced battle computers built into their suits. They immediately began moving their forces in perfect formations, just as they had been taught. Reed smiled. He had studied Earth's greatest battles, from ancient times to modern days. He knew something the aliens didn't. Perfect formations meant predictable movements. Sir, one of his simulated soldiers said, the enemy is advancing with superior numbers and technology. Should we retreat? No, Reed replied. We're going to do something they've never seen before, something humans call guerrilla warfare. He split his forces into small groups, hiding them in the forests and hills. The aliens' perfect formation marched forward, their sensors scanning for large army movements. But they weren't looking for tiny groups of 2 or 3 soldiers. In the observation room, the Bright One ambassador laughed. Your human isn't even fighting. He's running away and hiding like a coward. Kate and Tom exchanged knowing looks. They had seen this strategy before. Suddenly, Reed's hidden team struck. They attacked the alien supply lines, destroyed their communication points, and disappeared before the main force could respond. The alien commanders tried to adjust their perfect formation, but their battle computers couldn't handle the chaos. Impossible. One alien commander shouted, "This isn't proper warfare. They're not following any known tactical patterns." Reed's voice came over the communication system. That's because we're not fighting your way. We're fighting our way. His forces struck again and again, never where expected. They used the terrain, setting traps in rivers and ambushes in forests. The alien army's perfect formation broke apart as they tried to chase shadows. The alien commanders grew frustrated. They split their forces to hunt down Reed's teams, falling right into his trap. Once their army was scattered, Reed's main force struck directly at their poorly defended base. The simulation ended in just 40 minutes. Reed's fly flew over the alien base while their army was still searching the forests. The council chamber was silent. The Bright One ambassador's golden glow had dimmed to a pale yellow. The alien commanders stared at their battle computers, trying to understand what went wrong. How? One of them finally asked. Our tactical systems are perfect. Our formations were flawless. Reed stepped out of the simulation chamber. That was your mistake. Perfect formations work against perfect enemies. But humans learned to fight in the mud, in the chaos. We learned that sometimes the best plan is to throw away the plan. This is outrageous, the ambassador shouted. He cheated, used primitive tactics. Council leader Vale raised his hand. The human won fairly. Their unconventional thinking proved more effective than our traditional methods. He turned to Reed. Where did you learn such strategies? From Earth's history, Reed answered simply. When you evolve on a death world, you learn to use everything to your advantage, even chaos. As they left the chamber, Tom patted Reed on the back. Nice work. Think they'll make the last trial even harder now. Kate answered for him. Of course they will. And we'll beat that one too. The humans walked away, leaving the aliens to stare at their perfect but useless battle plans. 2 trials down, 1 to go, and humanity was just getting started. The transport ship broke through thick red clouds, descending toward a landscape that looked like it came from a nightmare. Massive volcanoes spewed ash into the sky. Acid rain fell in sheets. The ground was cracked and broken, with pools of bubbling mud everywhere. Welcome to Planet Inferno, the Bright One ambassador said, his environmental pod glowing brightly against the dark sky. Your final trial is simple. Survive here for 1 month. Commander Kate Smith looked at her team. They were carrying only basic supplies. The aliens wanted to test their true survival skills. Any special rules? Just one. No calling for help. The ambassador's pod rose into the air. We'll return in 1 month. If you're still alive, Earth joins the council. If not, he laughed. Well, let's just say no team has ever survived here for more than a week. The pod disappeared into the clouds, leaving the humans alone on the hostile world. The acid rain hammered against their environment suits. Well, Tom said, looking around, reminds me of that camping trip to Yellowstone, near the geysers. Kate nodded. First thing is shelter. Reed, what do you see? Lieutenant Reed pointed to a rocky outcrop. Those rocks look like granite. Acid rain won't eat through that. And see how the wind blows. That side will be more protected. They moved quickly, using their tools to dig into the rock face. Years of living on Earth had taught humans how to find safe places in dangerous lands. Within hours, they had a basic cave shelter. Not bad, Kate said, looking at their work. Next is water and food. This world tried its best to kill them. The acid rain burned through normal containers. The mud pools could melt metal. Even the air was thick with volcanic fumes. But humans had lived near volcanoes, in deserts, through ice ages. They knew what to do. They found underground springs where the water was clean enough to filter. They discovered strange but edible plants growing in the shelter of rock formations. When their food supplies ran low, they learned to set traps for the tough creatures that lived in the caves. 2 weeks passed. The observation satellites watching them expected to see despair, weakness. Instead, they saw the humans adapting, building better shelters, making tools from local materials, even starting to explore their surroundings. Look at this, Tom said one day, holding up a strange crystal he'd found. These form in the hot mud pools. Bet they're worth something to collectors. Reed laughed. Trust a human to find business opportunities on a death world. They faced dangers every day. Acid storms that lasted for hours, tremors that shook the ground, strange predators that hunted in the endless twilight. But each challenge just made them more determined. By week 3, they had multiple shelters connected by safe paths. They'd mapped the dangerous areas and found the safe ones. They'd even started experimenting with growing some of the edible plants near their cave. We're not just surviving, Kate said as they ate dinner in their main shelter. We're setting up a permanent camp. The aliens probably think we're crazy. We probably are, Tom replied. By their standards. But Earth taught us something they never learned, how to make a home anywhere. The final week was the hardest. The planet threw its worst at them. Massive storms, violent quakes, even a nearby volcano eruption. The humans not only survived, they helped some of the local creatures escape the lava flows. When the ambassador's pod returned after exactly 1 month, he found something impossible. The humans weren't just alive. They were thriving. They had buildings, food stores, even the beginnings of a farm. How? He whispered, his golden glow flickering in shock. This world, it's designed to kill. Kate stood before him, her suit dirty but her stance proud. You don't understand. Every world tries to kill. That's why life becomes strong. And Earth tried harder than most. The humans had done more than survive the trial. They had turned a death world into a home, just like they had done on Earth, so long ago. The final trial was over, and humanity had proven itself beyond any doubt. The council chamber was packed. Every alien species wanted to see what would happen after humans passed all 3 trials. Commander Kate Smith and her team stood in the center, their worn environment suits replaced with clean uniforms. The bright one ambassador paced before them, his golden skin flashing with unusual patterns. Very well, he said finally. You passed the trials. But before we proceed, there's something you should know. He turned to face the council. The trials were rigged. A murmur ran through the chamber. Kate's team tensed, but she held up her hand, keeping them calm. "We chose the worst storm world," the ambassador continued. "We programmed the combat simulation with our most advanced tactics. We selected a planet so hostile that even our strongest environmental pods couldn't survive there for long." His glow pulsed brighter. "The trials weren't meant to test you. They were meant to destroy you." Tom stepped forward, angry, but Kate stopped him. "Why?" she asked simply. The ambassador's glow flickered. "Because you terrified us. A species that evolved on a death world, with strength and endurance beyond anything we knew. We thought you were too dangerous to join galactic society. The trials were our way to keep you isolated forever." Council Leader Vale rose from his seat. "Ambassador, you admit to sabotaging an official council testing. This is unprecedented." "Yes," the ambassador said. "And yet they still succeeded. They didn't just pass our impossible trials. They made them look easy." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some council members called for the ambassador's arrest. Others wanted to know more about how humans had succeeded. In the middle of it all, Kate's team stood quietly, waiting. Finally, a new voice spoke up. It was one of the alien commanders from the combat simulation. "I request permission to speak." Vale nodded. "Proceed." "I've studied the humans' performance in all 3 trials," the commander said. "Yes, they're physically strong. Yes, they can fight. But that's not what makes them special." He looked at the human team. "They adapt. They think differently. When we gave them storms, they learned to use the wind. When we gave them perfect tactics, they used chaos. When we gave them a death world, they built a home." Other aliens started standing up. The scientists who had monitored the survival trial spoke about how humans had helped local creatures escape the volcano. The observers from the storm world described how the humans had worked together, protecting each other. "Perhaps," Vale said thoughtfully, "we were all wrong. Not just about humans being dangerous, but about what makes a species advanced." He turned to Kate. "You could have reacted with anger when learning of this deception. Instead, you stayed calm. Why?" Kate smiled. "Because on Earth, we learned something important. Strength isn't just about surviving. It's about helping others survive too. You saw us as dangerous because we're tough. But we're tough because our world taught us to overcome challenges, not just for ourselves, but for each other." The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Vale spoke again. "I propose a new vote, not just to accept Earth into the Council, but to create a new role for them. Humanity has proved they can survive anything. Perhaps they can teach that strength to others." The vote was quick and nearly unanimous. Earth would join the Council, and humans would become instructors, teaching other species how to become stronger, more adaptable. As they left the chamber, Tom looked at Kate. "Did you ever think it would end like this? Them wanting to learn from us?" "Actually," Kate replied, "it makes perfect sense. Earth taught us that the best way to survive is to help each other. Now we can help the whole galaxy." The Bright One ambassador watched them leave, his glow dim with shame. He had tried to prevent humanity from joining galactic society. Instead, he had helped prove exactly why they belonged there. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the hardest challenges. Earth had taught humanity that lesson. Now humanity would teach it to the stars. 1 year after the trials, the galactic landscape had changed completely. The massive space station that once housed only the Galactic Council now bustled with activity. In what everyone called the Earth Wing, humans taught other species how to become stronger, braver, and more adaptable. Commander Kate Smith stood at the window of her new office, watching alien ships come and go. Behind her, Tom was reviewing the latest training results on a holographic screen. "You won't believe these numbers," he said, grinning. "The Silk people, who used to need environmental suits just to walk around, they can now handle Earth normal gravity for short periods. The Cloud Dwellers are learning to survive ground-based storms. Even the bright ones are taking survival classes. Kate smiled. Amazing what people can do when they stop being afraid and start learning. A soft chime announced a visitor. Council leader Vale entered, looking much more comfortable around humans than he had a year ago. Commander Smith, I bring excellent news. The first alien colony on Earth has been approved. Really? Kate turned from the window. I thought most species were still too scared of Earth's conditions. That's why they want to go, Vale said. They've learned that facing fears makes them stronger. And they want to learn from the planet that created humanity. Through another window, they could see Lieutenant Reed teaching a group of alien soldiers. Instead of their perfect formations, they were learning to adapt, to think creatively, to use the environment to their advantage. The term Deathworlder was no longer an insult. It had become a mark of respect. There's more, Vale continued. Remember that crystal your team found on planet Inferno during the survival trial? Our scientists studied it. It's not just valuable. It's revolutionary. Its structure could help us build better ships, stronger stations. We never found it before because no one could survive there long enough to look. Tom laughed. Leave it to humans to find treasure on a death world. A group of young aliens passed by the office window, wearing training suits styled after human designs. They walked with confidence, their movements stronger than their species normally showed. One of them waved at Kate, a very human gesture they had picked up. The galaxy is changing, Vale said softly. Not just physically, but mentally. Your people showed us that being advanced doesn't mean avoiding challenges. It means learning to overcome them. Kate nodded. Earth taught us that a long time ago. Every time nature threw something at us, we didn't just survive. We learned from it. Now we can share those lessons. The station's AI announced another group of arrivals. More species wanting to learn, to grow stronger. Some came from worlds almost as harsh as Earth, finally ready to embrace their potential. Others came from gentle worlds, determined to toughen themselves. Oh, and Commander. Vale added with what passed for a smile on his alien face. The Bright One ambassador has requested Earth survival training. Personally, from your team. They all laughed at that. The same ambassador who had tried to keep humanity out of the galaxy now wanted to learn from them. It was a perfect example of how things had changed. As the day ended, Kate walked through the station's corridors with her team. Aliens no longer pressed themselves against walls in fear. Instead, they nodded in respect. Some even joined them for meals, eager to hear stories about Earth and learn from human experiences. You know what's funny? Tom said as they watched the stars through the station's main window. They thought Earth was a death world that made us too dangerous. But really, it was a training ground that made us perfect teachers. Kate looked out at the galaxy. A galaxy that was growing stronger, braver, and more united because humanity had shown them how. Earth didn't just teach us to survive, she said. It taught us to help others survive too. And that's the greatest strength of all. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of new possibilities. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or outcasts, but as teachers, guides, and friends. The age of fear was over. The age of growth had begun.